And good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute. So glad you could be with me. I want to begin sharing with you this morning some thoughts on Daniel chapter 7. I've been asked by several viewers to address Daniel chapter 7 and his vision. Just a real quick synopsis here. Of course, Daniel was writing during the first year of Belshazzar, who was the king of Babylon. Daniel saw a vision of four beasts, beginning with Belshazzar and the Babylonians, just like Daniel chapter 2 does. And that vision, of course, was under Nebuchadnezzar. But you have a vision of four beasts. And in the days of the fourth beast, a little horn arose. And, pardon me, this little horn, the text of Daniel chapter 7 says, pardon me, verse 8, I was considering the horns. There was another horn, a little one coming up among them, before whom three of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. I watched until thrones were put in place, and the Ancient of Days was seated. His garment was white as snow, the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was a fiery flame, its wheels a burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from him, and thousands of thousands ministered to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. I watched because of the sound of the pompous words which the horn was speaking. I watched until the beast was slain, and its body was destroyed and given to the burning flame. As for the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Then to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which shall not be destroyed. First thing I would like for us to notice, there are obviously some very, very difficult issues about this, as all commentators are agreed. But one thing that we can be certain of is what this beginning vision is really all about. It's the time of the kingdom. Now that's pretty clear. It's also the time of the coming of the Son of Man on the clouds of heaven. Now I was raised in the amillennial view of things, saying, well, Daniel 7, 13, and 14, when it talks about the Son of Man coming before the Ancient of Days, that's the ascension of Christ. That's when Christ was seated at the right hand of the Father. Well, I believed that view for many years. However, that view is simply untenable. It's not what the text says. Now, there are an awful lot of elements that mitigate that view, but notice, this coming of the Son of Man is the time when the thrones are set. It's the time of the judgment of the little horn that has been speaking great pompous things against the saints, i.e. persecuting the saints. Now let's make this abundantly clear, shall we? There was no little horn persecuting the saints prior to Jesus' ascension. Was there? This is especially true if one seeks to make the little horn in any way associated with the Roman Empire. The Romans were most assuredly not persecuting Christians prior to Jesus' ascension. So the lesson and the point that I want to make today is, point number one, the historical framework for Daniel chapter 7 is in the days of the Roman Empire. There is no postponement of the kingdom that is even hinted at, suggested. There's no clue of such a thing in the text, okay? Secondly, this coming of the Son of Man is a judgment coming, the judgment of the little horn. The little horn is being judged for persecuting the saints. This alone eliminates the Romans as under consideration for persecuting the saints prior to Jesus' ascension, because there was no persecution of the saints prior to Jesus' ascension. And since this is a judgment coming, and since Old Covenant Israel even was not persecuting the saints, the body of Christ, prior to Jesus' ascension, then Daniel chapter 7, 13 and 14 cannot be speaking of the coming of the Ancient of Days at the time of his ascension. Let me emphasize again, as Daniel 7, 10 and following clearly establish, this is the coming of the Son of Man, when the books would be opened to judge the little horn for persecuting the saints. This cannot be a reference to the ascension of Jesus, to be seated at the right hand of the Father. Well, hope you've enjoyed this. Hope it's provoked your thinking. We'll have more on Daniel chapter 7 when we look at it again on the flip side. Thanks for joining me for this morning's Morning Musings.